Hello, welcome everyone. This is Brandon. Thank you for joining me today for another podcast episode. Thank you for joining me because this is a new thing that I'm doing here. If you're on my YouTube channel watching the video, welcome. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, welcome as well. This is a podcast focused on anti-aging research, lifestyle, longevity, and a few other surprises thrown into the mix. So I'm glad to be doing this. I'm glad to be here in the second episode, staying consistent. So here we are for consistency into the new year. But today I am doing a podcast that is focused on stress, anxiety, and its implications for anti-aging, specifically the visible signs of aging. So if you are watching this on my YouTube channel, or if you don't know, I do have a YouTube channel that's focused on anti-aging and longevity and nutrition. You can find me there at Brandon Miles May. You can also see the video portion of this podcast, which I am posting every single week. So stay tuned for that. That can be very helpful for the figures that I have going. And as you can tell, this is a kitchen. It isn't really like an actual podcast studio, so I don't have that built out yet, but I do have, doing the best that I can, but I do have the dishwasher going on in the background. But anyway, like I said, this is a podcast focused on anti-aging and longevity and nutrition, and today we're going to be talking about stress and anxiety. But before we get into the topic at hand, I want to start off each podcast with a segment on a product that I'm using. So last time, the last podcast I did was on a biotin supplement that had B12 and a certain Chinese medicine extract in there that may be good for hair. Not so turned on by the biotin. I don't necessarily think it's the best for the hair. I mean, it might do something. I mean, there's some research to suggest, but watch episode 1, watch the previous episode, and you can see my thoughts on biotin and the other ingredients, B12, folate, astaxanthin, and those implications for the hair. But today's segment, I'm going to be focusing on a vitamin that not a lot of people are getting enough of. I personally am not getting enough of because, I don't go out in the sun, and that is vitamin D3. So I'm using a vitamin D3 supplement, as I think most people should, as long as you're getting your vitamin D3 levels tested. I think it's really important to supplement after you get your blood levels of vitamin D3 tested, just so you can know you're optimizing those the levels of that vitamin. But it's very essential because vitamin D3, typically you can synthesize it through your skin. So UV hits your skin, it ultimately converts cholesterol into your skin into the active form of vitamin D3, 5-hydroxyl 25 vitamin D, and that's going to have the biological effects, the benefits that you receive from D3. That's the active form of D3. But when it comes to anti-aging, there are active metabolites in vitamin D3 that have, or at least exert, a variety of different anti-aging and photoprotective effects on the skin. So vitamin D3, it does have immunomodulation abilities as well as anti-inflammatory actions. So that can be very helpful for the skin, because when it comes to aging, whether it's visible signs of aging or just like cellular aging, DNA and longevity, there is something that has been termed called inflammaging. So inflammaging is definitely the aging, the pathogenesis of aging definitely involves inflammatory compounds and cytokines, and really the excess of that inflammation. And that is caused by UV radiation to a significant extent. Also other things in our environment like pollutants and chemicals and things like that. But really when it comes to skin aging, there is your nutrition, there's pollutants, and there's UV radiation. UV radiation causes about 80% up to 90% of the visible signs of aging. So it really is about protecting your skin, but you can't make the vitamin D3 as great if you are covering up your skin every day. Really, you only need about 10 minutes on naked skin, and not your face. You don't really make a lot of vitamin D3 through your face or your neck, which is more prone to photo damage, but really larger areas of the body, your torso, your arms, your legs, things like that. But getting back to vitamin D3 and its anti-aging benefits. So vitamin D3, it induces antioxidant responses. We all know about antioxidants being great for fighting free radical damage and oxidative stress in the body, which has its own involvement in aging pathogenesis. vitamin D3 can also inhibit DNA damage and induce DNA repair mechanisms that may attenuate premature skin aging and UV radiation, as well as pollutants. So that's really cool because like I said, UV radiation, pollutants, those contribute to premature skin aging and really, really drive that pathogenesis of skin aging. But when it comes to vitamin D3, that it can induce these antioxidant responses, I think that's really cool. There is some experimental evidence. So if you're watching the video, you can see that I'm looking down a lot, but I'm just looking at my notes because there's a lot of research here. And I'll have all the references down below in the notes sections. But there is strong experimental evidence that vitamin D3 can induce, like I said, the antioxidant response systems in the body, and as well as potentially reverse reactive oxygen species production or generation in skin cells. And it does this that's mediated by UVB exposure. And the vitamin D3 does this by activating NRF2. So I talked a little bit about NRF2 on my YouTube channel and some of my videos, especially as it relates to broccoli and cruciferous vegetables. Brussels sprouts, cabbage, things like that. So NRF2 stands for nuclear factor erythroid 2 related factor 2, which is a mouthful, I know. But that basically helps there are antioxidant genes that are downstream of NRF2 that are really powerful, like catalase and super dioxide dismutase, and glutathione, I think. These are really important for helping to reduce reactive oxygen species in response to the sun, in response to UV radiation, in response to pollutants in our environment, as well as just reactive oxygen species that our body produces through exercise. If you're a intense exerciser, you're definitely getting that oxidation and that production of the reactive oxygen species. So you have to really make sure that you are optimizing your NRF2, optimizing those antioxidant pathways in your body. So anyway, backing up a little bit. So NRF2, you can find this in cruciferous vegetables, like I mentioned, like cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, things like that, even kale. And it really is it's generated through the damage of the plant. So when you chew the plant or you chop the plant, that's when the NRF2 is produced. But like I said, the vitamin D3 may help to ultimately improve the activation of that pathway and the endogenous antioxidant systems in the body. Like I mentioned before, catalase, I mentioned this in episode 1 of my podcast, catalase, super dioxide dismutase, these can actually help to break down hydrogen peroxide, which is a really important damaging free radical molecule in the body that accumulates over time, because over time our ability of our bodies to produce catalase and super dioxide dismutase declines and slows down. And so we have more accumulation of reactive oxygen species. We have more, or ROS, I should say, of this hydrogen peroxide. And that actually what contributes to gray hair. So it's really interesting to me that, if you can do things to help to improve your catalase production in your body, like maybe vitamin D3 or folate, like I mentioned in my previous podcast episode, may help to potentially prevent, to a certain extent, gray hair. But it definitely, just overall, I think a holistic approach to reducing reactive oxygen species, ROS, over time. So vitamin D3, like I said, it's not a lot of people are getting it. The deficiency is a common, prevalent issue, especially in the West, because even many people, me included, we protect our skin from the sun. We don't really go out. A lot of people have office jobs where they have to go in from morning to night, and they don't really get a lot of sun exposure, or they're in school, they're in classes, they're not getting sun exposure, and they're not getting that vitamin D3 production. And also over time, the skin's capacity to generate or produce vitamin 3 in response to the sun, it reduces over time. So it doesn't matter what the season is too. So not only that, its degradation of its active form increases over time. So it's even harder for the body to produce the active form of vitamin D3. In fact, the precursor of vitamin D3 that is found in the skin that helps to convert into the active form of vitamin D3, it declines by up to half from the age of 20 to 60 or to 80 years old. So it really, really is important to, at least for me, I find it really important that I'm going to get my blood vitamin D3 levels checked in like a couple of weeks. And I really want to see where I am because I've been using this Country Life vitamin D3 I use it maybe once a week because it has 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3. And I'm showing it to you on the video portion of this podcast here on YouTube. But I really do like this product because it has 10,000 IUs, but I think that's like 1,250% of your daily value. That's why I take it once a week, but I'm really interested to know if I need to be taking more, if I need to be taking less, because I think that's like, what is that? 1250 divided by 7. So that theoretically should cover 12 and a half days, but I take it maybe every 7 days, maybe. I don't really time it. I'm not really quantifying the amount of time I'm taking my vitamin D3, but I do take it once a week. And I'd be really interested to see, do I need to optimize it even further? Because there's so many other implications in regard to vitamin D3 levels when it comes to your health. It's not just about anti-aging. It's not just about the visible signs of aging. It really is about just many different aspects of your health. Immune function, mood, sleep, and all of these play a role in anti-aging as well. So it's all connected, it's all interconnected. So it's really important, I think, for me to go ahead and test those. So I will be really transparent and I will tell you my vitamin D3 levels in a future podcast. I'm using my half-gallon water bottle that I got for Christmas this year. I finished that. So it has like the days, or it has the time from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and you're supposed to chug it every hour basically and reach each like time point. I find that I'm like halfway done by 10 o'clock and I am probably very, very well hydrated. I think it's like half a gallon of water per day. There is definitely a metric or a measurement that you should use for your body weight. You can just find that easily online. But for my body weight, it tends to be about like 64 ounces of water a day that I would need. And I am chugging it. So, but I definitely divide it out between like tea and coffee if I'm drinking it that day or other things. Like if I put it in a smoothie, I definitely divide it out so it's not just like pure water all the time. And I also use it for, my other specialty drinks, which I'll get into later. So the topic of today's episode, the impact of stress and anxiety on aging and physiology and the visible signs of aging and longevity. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Like I said in my past podcast episode, I was going to say, like I say in all my episodes, but this is my second one. I will have all the references that I reference or that I cite. I'll have that in the show notes or somewhere in the show notes so you can easily access that and read up on the research for yourself. Like I also mentioned in all of my videos and in my podcast is that what I'm doing here on this podcast is something that's really fun for me. I'm doing a lot of research for my own benefit and I'm sharing it with the world, and hopefully you will find benefit from it as well. Hopefully you can go off on your own and look for the research out there, read up on what I'm discussing and what I'm applying to my own life. All of this is stuff that I'm applying to my own life and that I find fascinating. And hopefully this podcast, this video, or the videos that I have on YouTube, my goal is for people to experience or to really dive into the research with me and then I can give that information. They can go off on their own, read the research, and then make responsible decisions for their own life. But everything that I talk about is things that I'm doing in my own life. It is not medical advice by no means. None of what I'm saying in this podcast or in any other podcast or any of my videos is meant to be substitute for medical advice. You definitely need to be working with a clinician. Even doctors here on YouTube, they give great information, but you really have to work with a doctor who can work with you and see your individualized scenarios and case and health. So that's really important. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into the episode. All right, so stress. We all experience stress to some degree. Stress is a really powerful marker, and it really shows us where we are in our minds and where we are in our emotions. But oftentimes we don't take the time to really dwell on where we are. And because we have to go. We live in a fast-paced society. We have to answer emails and phone calls and pick up kids from school, or we have so many appointments and so many things scheduled that stress is really an inevitable part of life. In fact, that's what we sort of evolved to experience. I mean, we have that fight or flight response a lot of times, and that probably came in handy when we were hunting lions or when lions were hunting us. So we really needed that stress to show us that maybe we're in danger. But a lot of times for people, especially in the West, when we have so many comforts afforded to us and that we don't have to be out hunting, we don't have to be scrounging or harvesting or doing things for our survival, we are still oftentimes in a constant state of stress because we have this sensation that we may be in a dangerous part of our life, whether it be stressors from school or from work or from family or from relationships. We all have some type of stress trigger that is causing us to feel like we are in a dangerous situation to some extent. But really, what we're doing is we're a lot of times, for me personally, I find that I'm often out picturing the stressful event or the trigger, and usually things, work out, which is always good. But it really is about, when it comes to your health and when it comes to longevity and anti-aging, it really is not about avoiding stress, but about, I guess, finding ways to manage it and finding ways to optimize your resiliency towards stress and reduce your vulnerability towards stress and reduce that stress response. So stress plays a lot of roles in physiology. So it can definitely impact cardiovascular health over time. And it can also just impact sleep, which can also impact cardiovascular health. And the impact that it has on your skin is crazy because of the research that we have. Well, let's start on cortisol. So cortisol is a hormone. It's involved in the fight or flight response. And when you experience stress, your cortisol levels typically rise and you switch from a parasympathetic state where your body is digesting its food and you are relaxed and you're at ease to a sympathetic state. Cortisol, it inhibits enzymes that are responsible for the activity of enzymes within cells. So like I mentioned, catalase, superdioxide dismutase, these are powerful antioxidants that help to reduce oxidative stress and help to improve the, the other things that you do in your life for anti-aging. So what is really significant is that this hormone can ultimately inhibit these antioxidants and really, really contribute to that aging development, aging pathogenesis. The impact that stress has on skin. Now, there are several reasons that stress can impact your skin. First of all, stress increases inflammatory markers, things like cytokines, C-reactive protein, highly inflammatory. These conditions, these stress-related conditions, anxiety, especially chronic, they can increase the systemic inflammation by the CRP and the cytokines, and the chronic stress leads to the chronic elevation of these pro-inflammatory markers, including interleukin-6, IL-6, tumor necrosis factor, alpha, as well as IL-1 beta. So there is some translational research to suggest that stress also increases at least acute psychosocial stress, increases neuroadrenaline, and which in turn activates nuclear factor Kb and induces the release of IL-6. So like I mentioned, IL-6 is a pro-inflammatory marker, a cytokine, and there are also several skin-related conditions. So we can definitely see the impact that stress has on the skin, not just in terms of aging, because that kind of happens long-term, or the longitudinal aspect of the visible signs of aging. But there's also several skin-related inflammatory conditions where stress triggers the manifestations of those conditions right away. Those things include like acne, psoriasis, atopic dermatitis, alopecia areata, which is a autoimmune disorder that causes hair loss, erythema, which is basically skin reddening, as well as itch. So there's, did I mention psoriasis? Yeah. So that can definitely exacerbate the skin conditions. And I think one reason why it does this, and I could be wrong, but from the research that I did, there's research that found that stress can have effects on the skin barrier function. So the skin barrier function, is definitely there to help prevent anything from permeating or going into the skin and causing inflammation, and making sure that your skin is hydrated. If you have an impaired skin barrier, you often have more dehydrated skin. But it's really important to prevent that permeability of stressors in our environment, like pollutants and UV and things like that. But what research has found is that psychological stress definitely upregulates what's called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Another mouthful, but basically HPA, which I will be referring to in this podcast later on. But this in turn generates or stimulates stress hormone production within the body. And these hormones, they ultimately lead to the compromised barrier dysfunction. So you often have, with that compromised barrier dysfunction, reduced moisture production, reduced protein production in the epidermis. You also have increased transepidermal water loss, so that plays a role in more dehydrated skin. And that can definitely exacerbate those skin conditions. But also over time, the skin aging is associated with impaired skin barrier. So when you have stress compounding on just the passage of time, that's definitely causing more harm than good and more damage than should be there if you were managing your stress appropriately. So definitely, aside from just moisturizing your skin and keeping your skin moisturized and out of the sun, because the sun UV can definitely damage moisture retention and cause skin barrier disruptions. But aside from just moisturizing, it's really fascinating that stress management potentially can help to improve or at least support your moisture barrier, your skin barrier function. So that's really cool. Now, stress hormones, I mentioned cortisol, but there's also epinephrine and norepinephrine. But a lot of people are familiar with cortisol, and this is a stress hormone. Like I said, it's converted to its active form from cortisone by an enzyme. It's a long enzyme. I'm not gonna go through that, but it is L11BHSD1, and it does this in the peripheral tissue of the skin. What research has found is that elevated levels of this enzyme that converts cortisol from cortisone, it's found elevated in the oral mucosa, and it's associated with increased cortisol in the stratum corneum, as well as deteriorated barrier function. So not super surprising based upon the research that we've already talked about previously. The enzyme is also associated with delayed wound healing on the skin, as well as the inhibition of skin cells, fibroblasts, keratinocytes, the proliferation of those. It inhibits those. So what I'm reading from that research is that possibly elevated levels of cortisol from constant or chronic stress is associated with the elevation of this enzyme that helps to convert cortisone into cortisol. In turn, because of the delayed skin healing and the inhibition of the proliferation of keratinocytes and fibroblasts, suggests to me that stress ultimately can definitely reduce or decrease the synthesis of new collagen in the skin. There was also a study that found that an inhibitor of this enzyme, and this is why I think this, the inhibitor of that enzyme was associated with increased dermal collagen content, as well as promoted fibroblast proliferation. Now, this was related to glucocorticoids, which are anti-inflammatory drugs. They can alter collagen metabolism. But again, it suggests to me that, or at least it raises the question, does this have implications for the skin absent of these drugs? Can managing stress help to reduce that enzyme and therefore help to improve just overall skin barrier function and improve the collagen synthesis that you would naturally have or that you would naturally produce if you're using topical ingredients? I don't know the answer to that because it hasn't been studied, but it definitely is important. And I think it definitely has implications for just, knowing that managing your stress and finding ways to do that is going to go a long way in possibly protecting your collagen in your skin. So I think that's really, really cool. Stress also produces oxidative stress. So you have emotional stress, you have physical stress from like exercise, which I already mentioned, can cause reactive oxygen species, but you also have this oxidative stress, and oxidative stress happens within the cells. This is what's really cool or interesting or fascinating to me is that not only can UV cause a lot of oxidative stress in the body, but just emotional and psychological stress, mental stress, can induce oxidative damage. So you actually have a physiological response to stress. You have this oxidation that occurs, and within that, or subsequent of that, is an inflammatory response. Remember the inflammation that can result in the degradation of collagen and elastin fibers. So it's really, really, really fascinating to me that we can have this emotional response to a situation in our life that maybe we can't necessarily control, but we can control our ability, hopefully to find ways to manage that stress. And if we don't, we have the oxidative stress in our bodies that can, or in the body that can lead to that degradation of collagen and elastin fibers. So again, another bit of research that suggests to me that managing the stress can help to protect your collagen and elastin and play a significant, considerable role in anti-aging and the visible signs, reducing or at least preventing the progression of those visible signs. So significant, considerable implications in anti-aging. There are things that we can do in our life that can help to reduce stress or manage stress. Like I was mentioning this in the podcast that, there's tons of stressors in our reality, and some of the things that we can't control, but we can potentially manage. And there are studies suggesting that if we manage this stress appropriately, the emotional stress, the anxiety that we may experience, if we manage those appropriately, it may have anti-aging benefits and reduce that the inducement of the aging markers, the inflammation, the inflammaging, the oxidative stress, and have significant anti-aging benefits. So the biggest thing is relaxation, but I'm sure if someone told you to relax, it's easier said than done, right? But we have definite researched back methods to helping people or helping the body relax and reduce the oxidative stress. We have meditation, we have deep breathing, we have mindfulness. So all of this, just general relaxation, may help reduce markers of inflammation and improve immune system function, which I think is very significant. Because when we're talking about the overall anti-aging, immune function definitely also declines over time. So making sure that we are taking a holistic approach to anti-aging, it's not just about the visible signs of aging, it's not just the skin, it's also about, the various aspects of our bodies that contribute to longevity, and immune function is definitely, on the top of the list. So relaxation has been associated with improvements in immune system function and reduced markers of inflammation and reduced markers of oxidative stress. So there are many different techniques to help to manage stress. And like I talk about a lot on my videos, I really choose a holistic point of view that have, techniques that have really helped me, because I've been able to very recently apply certain holistic natural techniques to help manage my anxiety and my stress. And it has gone a long way in my own life to help to really just help me become more relaxed and help to reduce even the physical manifestations of stress and anxiety in my own body. So these are things that I really believe in. And I made sure to do the due diligence and find research studies out there that can really support, everything that I do. Because anything that I apply in my own life, I definitely want to make sure that there is a good amount of research behind it, or even if there's a little research behind it, as long as there's like a handful of studies that have consistently shown benefit and the same type of result, I will apply it to my life and see if it works for me. The first thing that I have that I started incorporating into my life very recently, I actually started this when I was about 12 years old, and I sort of fell off the bandwagon and recently got back into it, but that is meditation. So there are many different types of meditation. One of the meditations that I think is really popular is trying to clear your mind. You're basically just trying to have no thought. And that's really sort of what, I'm trying to reach for, but it is a challenge. It is kind of hard to just clear your mind, because it's hard to just stop all thought. And that's really a goal in meditation, and a lot of meditations, is to just stop thought. One way that I found to be somewhat helpful is to, whenever I am meditating, my body is relaxed, my eyes are either open or closed. Typically, I try to close my eyes so they don't have any distractions, is to focus on a sound in my environment and really focus intensely on that sound while ensuring that my body is still relaxed. My eyes tend to tense up a lot in meditation, so I have to make sure that my eyes are still relaxed the whole time, but really focusing on the sound in, my ambient environment, just making sure that I can just focus on that, because that can help to really slow my mind and stop the thinking that I have. It doesn't work all the time, so I have to choose, a different technique. But, in that glimpse, sometimes I have just like a glimpse of, non-thought moments. And that's really kind of where I want to extend it. So I really want to just like start with like a minute a day or even 30 seconds a day of doing that, of stopping thought by focusing on a sound in my environment. That also brings you into sort of mindfulness meditation, where you're just focusing on what is happening in the moment rather than what's going on in your head. A lot of the things that go on in our head are happening yesterday or in the future, so we're not really focused on the now moment, what we're doing now, what we're touching now. And, that's sort of where, you can also get out of your head and you can stop thought to a certain extent and just focus on where you are. And you can do that with your eyes open, or you could do that with your eyes closed. Like one of the ways that you can do it with your eyes closed, and so you don't have a lot of external stimuli that could arouse your anxiety to a certain extent. You can have your eyes closed and focus on just certain areas of your body that you find tense or that are not quite relaxed. A lot of times it's like the forehead for me and the eyes, and I just really focus on relaxing that as much as possible and just going down from head to toe, relaxing every single muscle. And that really gets me out of my mind and just gets me on relaxing my body. And that can go a long way in helping to just reduce anxiety and stress. There's also mantras. You can choose a mantra to focus on or an affirmation and just repeating that over and over again. There's also meditation where you can relax your body and just allow your thoughts to proliferate, or well, not proliferate, but allow your thoughts to run by and just release, and just letting them go and releasing them. One thing that I found helpful is to just very gently imagine a thought that I might have while I'm lying down and relaxing, and putting that in a cloud and allowing that cloud and just watching that thought in that cloud go away and just like dissipate and go off, and then it's gone. And then perhaps another thought comes in and I put it on that cloud and it goes away. And then, it's just basically that type of meditation. You're allowing your thoughts to do what they want to do. You're allowing your mind to do what they want to do, but you're seeing it from a non-judgmental point of view. You're just observing the thoughts. You're not participating in the thoughts. You're not thinking necessarily the thoughts. You're just observing the thoughts and allowing them to be. And you can either imagine them going away on that cloud, like I suggested, or you can just allow them to be and observe them. Don't participate in them. Just let them be, and then let them go on their way. And that's sort of how I approach that type of meditation. Guided meditation is also really, really important, and really not important, but I think it can be important for a lot of people who, maybe get antsy when it comes to trying to let their thoughts go, or trying not to think. If they become a little bit too anxious or nervous about that, they can definitely do a guided meditation. Plenty of free guided meditations here on YouTube. I'm actually thinking about doing one myself and just having that free here on YouTube. But there is some research showing that meditation, a 12-week course of a meditation-based lifestyle combined with yoga, was associated with significant improvements in biomarkers of cellular aging, as well as metabolic biomarkers that influence cellular aging when compared with baseline levels. So what this study did is it took participants that did a 12-week yoga and meditation course, and they did it 5 days a week for 12 weeks. It was 90 minutes total, 5 days a week for 12 weeks, and it was associated with reduced cellular aging. They found that there was significant reductions in DNA damage markers, significant reductions in ROS, cortisol, and IL-6. So just tying that all together, we have the reactive oxygen species, we have the stress hormone, we have the inflammatory marker, the pro-inflammatory markers, and there was also the mean levels of total antioxidant capacity was also significantly increased. There was also significant increases in the activity of telomerase, and telomerase is an enzyme that protects the tips of the chromosomes, protects our DNA, and is associated with longevity. There's also increased beta endorphin, which is sort of like a feel-good hormone, as well as increases in SIRT1 or SIRT1. And I talked about SIRT1. That has definitely significant involvement in anti-aging of the skin, visible signs of aging, as well as longevity. And I talked about that in episode 1. So definitely go back and listen to my first episode, or my first podcast episode, where I talked about SIRT1, because that can be activated through also dietary means. But it's really fascinating that we can potentially activate that or maybe even increase it through meditation and yoga, basically stress management through meditation and yoga. So I think that's really, really, really cool. So I kind of touched upon yoga. There's also breath work and yoga. I'm kind of combining these into one, but yoga, it's something that I do off and on. I want to start taking a yoga class, like an hour yoga class. I know Jacob and I talked about, I know he really brought it up. So when we move, I think we're going to start doing yoga at least once a week, if not more. But when it comes to yoga, there's research suggesting that yoga postures as well as breathing techniques, and usually I'm combining this into one because a lot of yoga incorporates breathing techniques, and I'll get into breath work in a later episode, and it's in regard to anti-aging. But yoga postures and breathing techniques, they are associated with the down regulation of that HPA, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, as well as down regulation of the sympathetic nervous system. So again, the sympathetic nervous system is sort of that fight and flight response. So doing breathing exercises, doing yoga can help to down regulate that response and help to really significantly manage stress. There's also research to suggest that yoga may help reduce those inflammatory markers, like I said before, the CRP, the IL-6, the TNF, the tumor necrosis factor. And there's something called, which you've probably heard of and probably are familiar with, but it's diaphragmatic breathing. And it's basically breathing from the diaphragm and allowing that to go up and down rather than taking shallow breaths from your chest or from your lungs, which seems to happen when you're having like a panic attack. This diaphragmatic breathing is associated with a decrease in ROS concentrations in people who have that stress response. So you have that reduction in reactive oxygen species through the deep breathing and the breathing techniques. Also, when it comes to yoga, one thing that I asked when I was doing my research is, could yoga sort of trigger improved antioxidant status? Could it trigger glutathione peroxidase, or could it trigger catalase or superoxide dismutase? And what I found was really surprising. So there was one study that showed that glutathione peroxidase and superoxide dismutase, which are enzymatic antioxidants, as well as levels of glutathione, significantly increased in people who practice Sudarshan Kriya, which is a yoga and a breathing meditation practice. If I probably didn't pronounce that correctly, so definitely leave the pronunciation if you care down below in the comments. But the levels of these powerful antioxidant enzymes were higher in people who practice regularly yoga and breathing meditation compared with people who didn't practice this. Another study found significant elevation in superoxide dismutase and catalase. This again mitigates hydrogen peroxide in the body. And they found this significant elevation of these enzymes, these antioxidant enzymes, after 12 weeks of yoga. And the study looked at 12 weeks of yoga, 60 minutes per day for 6 weeks. So you had people who performed yoga sessions each day for at least 6 days per week, 60 minutes per day per session. And this was in healthy males. Would this translate to females? Not sure, but they found this in healthy males doing an hour of yoga for 6 days per week for 12 weeks. These antioxidant enzymes actually decreased in the control group. So the control group who didn't do this yoga had decreased in antioxidant status. And I found actually, if you're watching the YouTube video, I am putting up the actual yoga, I guess, like technique that they did and everything that they did in this yoga program. And you see that it was 60 minutes total. They started with a prayer for 2 minutes, and they did Om chanting, which is basically the sound of the universe. They did a mantra, and then they did some yoga movements. They did yogasana for 10 minutes, which is basically, I think that's the sun salutations. Or no, that's Surya Namaskar. That's the sun salutation. They did that for 12 minutes. They did another yoga practice for 10 minutes, another yoga practice for 10 minutes, pranayama, which I think is a breathing practice, a breathing technique, that was 15 minutes. And then they ended it with 7 minutes of meditation for a total of 60 minutes. And I found this so fascinating that I am wanting to start to incorporate this into my own exercise routine. So I might even want to start doing this once or twice a week. I don't know if I could do it 6 days a week for an hour, but maybe once, maybe twice a week, and maybe build it up from there. I don't really want to focus on yoga every single day. That, I want to mix it up with like interval cardio to help to improve my growth hormone production and cardiovascular health, and strength training exercises. Like I want to mix it up a little bit, and a little bit of cardio, strength training and things like that. But I think the results were so fascinating to me and so astounding to me that, I definitely want to incorporate these practices, these yoga and meditation and breathing exercise related practices in my own lifestyle, so that, hopefully I can support my endogenous antioxidant system. Okay, so now it is recognized in the scientific circles that the increased oxygen consumption that you experience with exercise does lead to excess generation of reactive oxygen species. But yoga-based relaxation with meditation may be associated with reduced oxygen consumption and increased breath holding. So it is thought that maybe the low consumption of oxygen during yoga may alter sort of the metabolic state of people who practice yoga, which may also reduce the final fatty acid peroxidation in cells that are associated with are indicative of increased free radical levels in the body. So potentially yoga practitioners, because of the breath work that you do with like the deep breathing and the breath holding, you may have overall decreased oxygen consumption that you would have in something like long distance running. I think that's probably why a lot of long distance runners tend to have more oxidative stress or reactive oxygen species, generally speaking, or not long distance runners, but chronic exercisers tend to have increased levels of reactive oxygen species, and intense exercise tends to be associated with that as well. But, I wonder if that is, I'm definitely not saying you should be holding your breath for a long time and to prevent oxygen consumption. But, I think that is really something to keep in mind. That's one reason why I don't run or exercise for long periods of time, like definitely not an hour at a time, just because personally, I don't want the increased oxygen or oxidative damage that occurs in the reactive oxygen species that occur, because I think that is associated with that intense exercise. But getting back to yoga, there's another study that explored the effects of yoga on inflammatory markers, and they showed that the group who practiced yoga had reduced inflammatory response as shown by, or is demonstrated by reduced levels of TNF alpha and IL-6. So these are, again, pro-inflammatory markers. So another study suggesting that yoga is associated with reduced inflammation, and in addition to lower reactive oxygen species. There was another study on yoga practitioners, and they found that yoga practice was associated with significant reduction in the plasma levels of adrenaline and increased levels of serotonin. So serotonin is sort of like the feel-good hormone that also just provides alertness during the day. And I talked about sort of the circadian rhythms in my past vlogs, so check that out. But optimizing that is also really important for the stress response, anxiety, anti-aging, and health. So watch that video. But there's also some research suggesting that yoga with like side stretching, if you're watching the video, I'm doing like the side stretching that I do with yoga, or like just like, sort of like the twisting and the different sort of side body opening procedures that you do with yoga. There is a belief that sort of that stimulation, the mechanical stimulation of tissues in the body, can improve the utilization of blood glucose as well as the metabolism of blood glucose through various enzymatic processes, and this can lead to increased glucose uptake, which can lead to reduced blood sugar in the body that may possibly be associated with reduced AGEs, or advanced glycation end products. Talked about this before on my vlogs endlessly on YouTube, but AGEs definitely, it's basically when glucose links up with a protein molecule, and within the skin that can lead to skin aging. So there's a lot of different moving parts when it comes to skin aging, but these advanced glycation end products can definitely contribute to that pathogenesis of aging, as well as just the cellular and molecular aspects of aging, the biological aspects of aging. It's not only important to eat less sugar and really reduce or watch your sugar intake, but exercise can help to really improve your utilization of glucose that's broken down by those carbohydrates that you may consume, and help to possibly improve that utilization so that you have reduced AGEs, or those advanced glycation end products. In addition, yoga just helps with attitude. So it helps with, I did a lot of research on yoga, didn't I? But research can definitely help with just your overall attitude. It helps to promote a sort of an improved like whole body mind approach to everyday life. You can have generally, I mean, it definitely is a lifestyle. I mean, yoga teaches having that whole body mind approach to life and more positive feelings and outlook. And just exercise in general helps you feel better. And having that sort of like that endorphin release can just kind of play into your whole day and help you to, when situations come. I know in my own life, whenever I exercise, whether it's yoga or whether it's interval cardio or some type of strength training exercise, I do feel better afterwards. And it does sort of come out throughout my day and sort of proliferate throughout my day or expand throughout my day. And trying to find the right words here, but it definitely helps me feel a lot better just whenever I do approach something that may be anxiety inducing or stressful, sort of like an external stressor in my lifestyle or in my life. Exercise definitely helps you to approach that with a more balanced mindset and more resiliency and less vulnerability to those external stressors. One of the other things that I like to do also is gratitude. So either writing it down or just saying it out loud, that also shifts you into just a higher vibrational frequency and allows you to just feel better about what you have. Because a lot of times as humans, we can definitely get into a situation where we're complaining about every little thing. And that definitely causes, not only does that just cause, a negative persona and a negative personality, but really when you're shifting yourself into that higher vibrational state of being and you're grateful for what you have, it gives you more room to expand the space that allows more good to come in. And you constantly, if you do it often enough and frequent enough, you get into a habit of being grateful for the things in your life, and you're able to focus on that. And that really does help to reduce that stress response over time, as long as you're practicing it consistently. So what I do oftentimes is I'll just have like a stream of consciousness where I'm saying all the things I'm grateful for out loud, or I will take a journal notebook and write down the things I'm grateful for and do that for a good 10, 15 minutes. And that really shifts my mindset and my body. And it really just shifts you into a new dimension where you are in a higher vibrating mindset and being, and it's really great at helping to reduce stress and anxiety. Hypnosis is another technique that I'm really digging. There's a lot of research for hypnosis in regard to physical health, but definitely hypnosis can help to get into your subconscious and embed messages within your subconscious while you're totally aware of all those messages, by the way. But because you're in a relaxed state in hypnosis, you can insert messages to help you to relax throughout the day into your subconscious mind so that you just do it subconsciously and you don't have to think about it. Self-hypnosis is really popular and really, really helpful in this regard. Again, with hypnosis, you are fully aware when you're in like a trance, you're fully aware of everything that's being said to you, everything that's being inserted into your mind, into your subconscious. But it really is about changing your behavior over time through your subconscious mind. And I really, really, really adore self-hypnosis. I think that it's really good for also physical aspects of health, which I'll get into in later episodes, but it can really play a good role in anti-aging by helping you to say, you might have like hypnosis session where the hypnotherapist or maybe it's a recording that you're using, or maybe you're just doing self-hypnosis. You can insert messages where you say, whenever I touch my middle finger and my thumb and I rub those two together, I will instantly relax. Wherever I am, I will instantly relax. And you just tell yourself that during a trance-like state, which is basically where your body is fully relaxed, because when you're tense, you really can't access your subconscious mind. So you can't really get a lot of change happening. But when you're fully physically relaxed and emotionally relaxed and you're open mentally and emotionally, you can really embed those messages into your subconscious and really have those physiological responses to those messages. There's also some research on binaural beats. So these are basically frequencies that, go through both of your ears through headphones, usually overlaid with music. And there is some research to suggest that it can help to shift your brain waves into like beta, alpha, theta, delta being great for deep sleep. But there was a study showing that people who listened to binaural beats that were specific for theta had greater dominance of the parasympathetic system during the listening than the control group. So the parasympathetic system, again, is the relaxation, and having that dominance is really significant if you are experiencing stress, anxiety, and you're trying to manage it. So there are a lot of videos on YouTube where there's, music and binaural beats that you can listen to for like hours on end, and there are theta. Theta tends to occur when you're sort of like drifting off to sleep and just before you wake up. And it can also occur when you're in a very, very deeply relaxed state of mind. So ideally, a hypnosis session might include something like theta binaural beats, so you can really it can really help to maximize that relaxation quality. And sometimes I'll even listen to theta when I'm at my computer and I'm writing or I'm editing a video, just to help to relax me. And I was definitely doing that at like sort of the peak of my anxiety and stress, and I really did find that helped me. Even if it was just like the placebo effect, regardless, it really, really did help me. And I feel like it did shift my brain waves into theta. I don't know. It's definitely probably probably, I don't think those two words go together, a placebo effect, but there is some research to suggest that these binaural beats help to train your brain to get into those different brainwave states. And delta could be great for helping with deep sleep. And, you have those others, the alpha, and, but yeah, I definitely encourage you to look into that and see what you think. Like I mentioned, exercise earlier, yoga, I talked about extensively, but there's also cardio. There's also interval cardio, which I love because you only do about like 20 minutes of it and you get like the full benefits of an hour long exercise routine. Just after acute bouts of exercise, there are increases in these neuromodulators, and these include things like endogenous opioids and endocannabinoids, which are fantastic for mood as well as sort of like the pain disruption. But we have these natural occurring opioids and endocannabinoids in our body, and just acute bouts of exercise are associated with the increase in these neuromodulators. So the endogenous opioid system includes families of opioid peptides, and these include beta endorphins. I don't know how to pronounce this, enkephalins, as well as dynorphins. And these are all involved in different processes, including, like I said, pain modulation, reward, stress response, as well as autonomic control. So this increases with exercise. So yeah, awesome. And this effect is often intensity dependent. So it depends on the intensity that you're doing your exercise. So just walking, I'm not really sure how much increase of these neuromodulators that you're going to actually have, or at least the peripheral levels of endogenous opioids. If you're not doing it at an intense level, like interval cardio or some type of cardio, or even like strength, hard, intense strength exercises, I'm not really sure, how much it's going to increase, but it does definitely correspond to acute exercise-induced changes in the HPA axis hormones, like I mentioned earlier. So you have that, all coming in full circle here. And overall, exercise definitely helps to improve mood and well-being, like I mentioned previously. There's also supplements. So one supplement that I've been taking recently is the magnesium the Natural Vitality Calm, and I'm putting this up on the video if you're watching this on YouTube, but this is a fantastic supplement. One thing that many people don't know is that up to 80% of people are either low in magnesium or deficient in magnesium because they're either not getting it through their diet or they're not absorbing it well. And I was having physical manifestations of stress and anxiety, and I started taking this Calm, and it really, really helped me reduce those manifestations, and I haven't had them, for the past couple of days. So this has magnesium carbonate, and it's also mixed with citric acid. And when you mix these in hot water, it forms magnesium citrate, which is highly absorbable, and that's what you want. So it is sweetened with stevia. I got the raspberry lemon flavor, but I think they have flavorless magnesium supplement. I'm starting to take this maybe like every night with hot water, and it's really, really helped me calm down. It's helped my sleep. It really helps with, at least for me, it really has helped with stress because, there is research showing that low magnesium status, which again, a lot of people have, is associated with chronic psychological stress or associated systems. So there is research to suggest that low magnesium status is associated with psychological stress and associated symptoms. So there's other research showing that there's sort of like things that feed into itself when it comes to stress and magnesium. So stress can cause magnesium loss. Stress can result in magnesium deficiency, which I think I might have been magnesium deficient. That's also something that I'm going to be testing soon along with vitamin D is my red blood cell magnesium. That's really what you want to test for, not your serum, but your red blood cell magnesium. I'm going to be testing for that very, very soon. So I'd be interested to know what I'm at now with supplementing with it. As long as I'm not, what I've been doing recently with magnesium, I've been monitoring my nutrition, and the magnesium that I'm not getting from my diet, I am supplementing. I'm sort of measuring it out to supplement with this magnesium, this Calm magnesium carbonate. 2 teaspoons is 77% of your daily value. And that's what I was taking at first. And it was making me really calm, really kind of sleepy and relaxed. So I kind of backed off it recently. I'm taking a teaspoon at night. And today I actually got up to 75% of my daily value of magnesium through my diet. So I might just supplement with 1 teaspoon again or half a teaspoon tonight and just see if that's going to be enough after I test my red blood cell magnesium. But again, stress can result in magnesium loss, causing a deficiency. Also, magnesium deficiency could enhance susceptibility to stress. And this can just lead to a vicious cycle of stress, magnesium deficiency, magnesium, stress, reducing your resiliency towards stress. So it's really, really interesting. Magnesium is something that's not often talked about or not often discussed. And I think it has so many wide variety, so many wide roles and implications in health, especially when it comes to bringing it full circle to anti-aging. There's some research to suggest that low magnesium status is also associated with greater or reduced antioxidant capacity in the body, like catalase and superoxide dismutase. So making sure that you are monitoring your levels of magnesium can play a huge role in not only helping with the stress response, but also anti-aging. There's another supplement that I have been sort of dabbling with, and that's ashwagandha. So this is an Indian herb, and this is just something that I've been taking. I found some research to suggest that ashwagandha may be adaptogenic and may help to improve responses to stress and really help the body just normalize just physiological processes during times of increased stress. And it also may be anxiolytic, so may help with, maybe associated with, anti-anxiety effects to a certain extent. There's also some good research to suggest that ashwagandha may help to increase levels of catalase in the body. Again, that's the enzymatic antioxidant that may help to reduce hydrogen peroxide in the body, which is associated with that accumulation in the hair that can cause gray hair. But also hydrogen peroxide just damages cells and also plays a role in aging. So definitely making sure that you're optimizing your level of catalase as much as you can. I'm not necessarily sure if you can test for catalase. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but what I do is I just do everything I can to make sure that I'm doing, nutritionally and exercise and meditation and stress management to help with that catalase. And really, any and all antioxidant systems in my body, making sure that I am optimizing that NRF2 activation by eating broccoli sprouts, which contain like up to 100% 100% of that NRF2 than the mature plant, broccoli or kale or Brussels sprouts or other cruciferous vegetables or vegetables within the brassica family. So I just making sure that I'm doing everything I can to improve the endogenous antioxidant pathway and system within my body is really important without taking antioxidant supplements, because there is some research showing that antioxidant supplements, we may not be getting great benefits from them directly by taking them as a supplement, and there may even be some level of harm. So I think it's really important to do what you can to help your body, to encourage your body to produce those antioxidants. That was the podcast. I hope you learned a lot. This was really, really informative for me. Like I said, I'm going to be applying. I think the one thing that I haven't really started applying in this whole discussion here is that yoga session. So again, I'm going to put it back up here on the video if you're watching this on YouTube so that you can see, all the things that are involved in it. Take a screenshot of it and save it for your own purposes, because it's just a 60-minute yoga meditation session practice. For me, I'm going to just incorporate it once or twice a week and, see if I like it. And if not, I might modify it here and there. If I, modify the mantras and the chanting and things like that and the meditation, but I definitely want to incorporate that more into my lifestyle. But everything else I'm doing more consistently. I'm doing the magnesium more consistently. I'm doing the meditation more consistently. I'm exercising a little bit more, doing interval cardio. So that's been really helpful for me. What helps you manage your stress? What helps you to adapt and become more resilient to stress? Leave me a comment down below. If you like this podcast, definitely leave a 5-star review and leave a comment and a review. I would love to see your review, and I would love to, see a like and your comment here on YouTube if you're watching or listening to the podcast here on YouTube. If you enjoyed this, definitely share this with your friends who are into health and wellness and anti-aging. I'd love to have them here. I have a lot of fun doing this podcast. I learn so much. I love doing the research, and I love incorporating this research into my own lifestyle, because again, this is benefiting me. This is something fun that I like to do just on my own. I read hundreds and hundreds of scientific papers, and I find something that I can apply to my own life. And, I'm just very glad that I can share this with you and share this with my subscribers, because this is really fun. And I love learning a lot from you. Send me your email, send me your messages. You can email me at brandon@maymedcom.com. COMM2Ms.com, Brandon@maymedcom.com. Let me know what you do to manage your stress and anxiety. Leave it down in the comments. Email me suggestions. I'd love to have those. But until next time, I hope you have a good one, and I will see you in the next podcast. Thank you, everybody. Bye.